Hi, welcome to week number 6, and this week we are going to study the loop structures. Last week, we have studied the decision structure, if, else, switch, all those keywords. Now, this week we will learn about the looping structure or the iteration structure. Now, as you know that probably that the fundamental process in a program is to repeat a series of instructions either while a condition is true or not true or until the condition is true. Okay. For example, if a company is processing electronic payment checks for some employees, then it can use the same set of instructions to post an electronic deposit for each employee. Let's say another from another perspective, let us say there is a school, there is a college. I mean, it has a billing department, and at the time of the term beginning, they bill the students as per the enrollment. So every month they run the statements for the students. So if they have let us say 10,000 students, it does not mean that they have to manually run 10,000 statements. They can run it as a part of the iterative block, iterative structure. So that's what we are going to discuss today with a different example. So we will be adding a new object here, which is called the menu strip object, and then we will use input box function. We have already used it, in the last section last week. We will display data using the list box object. Then we will add a background image, understand the use of counters and accumulators. We will understand the use of compound operators. So we will repeat a process using a for next loop. The repeat a process is using a do loop. Basically, that's what we are going to do. Avoid infinite loops. We will prime a loop and we will validate the data. Then we will create a nested loop. Select the best type of loop. Debug using data tips and breakpoints, and publish a finished application using click once technology. Okay. So for a computer program, the fundamental process, as I mentioned before, is to automate the things, right? I mean, automation is the main automation and digitizations. Those are the two purposes, fundamental purposes of any computer program. So in order to perform these, like automation, we need to enable the computer program to do some tasks repeatedly. The similar type of tasks which can be done repeatedly, they should do repeatedly as a part of the automation. Now, when do they repeat? The repetition of a series of instructions should take place either while a condition is true or not true, or until the condition is true or not true. So while it is true or until it is true or not true, of course. So the process of repeating a set of instructions while a condition is true or until a condition is false is called, that is basically is called looping. Another term for looping is iteration. So pay attention to the terminologies. So in this particular exercise, in this particular class, we are going to pick up an example of a fitness challenge team weight loss app, and we will show you how we are going to implement the iterative structure within this app. So the first step will be to use an interface design, user interface design, and this UI design process. You start with defining the menu strip object, which is here. This is my Visual Studio. You will see it during my the lab demo section, but The menu strip is here, right here. The the menu strip object, this is a .NET component. And menu strip object is something like here. What you see on the top left side of this image of the screenshot, you have a file. Under the file you can have clear and exit. There are two options, two things you can do with these two menus the file is offering. So when you do the clear, it will do certain thing, of course clear some data. And when you do exit, it's very simple, the window will be simply closed. So now a menu bar. So what is a menu bar here? What does the menu strip object contain? Answer is the menu bars. A menu bar is a strip across the top of a window that contains one or more than one menu items. So what is a menu item? A menu is a group of commands or items presented in the list. Okay. So in the UI design, with a Windows form object open in the Visual Studio window, you need to scroll in the toolbox to display the menus and toolbars category. So basically you have to go to the toolbox, menus and toolbox, and you have to pay attention to the .NET components. So what you should do, you should drag and release the object on the screen. The menu strip object will be selected and scroll in the properties window until the name property is visible. Then you change the menu strip object name to something that you choose. So it is like this one. Let me show you the code. So here is the code. So what we did here, we we created a menu strip, and then we made the changes as directed here, so that it is doing some clear action. We'll see it in the lab more details. And exit is simply closing the window. So the menu thing, how do you populate a menu? So basically you have to select the file object. Basically you have to create the menu, and then if you click on the menu object, you can tap or click the type here box on the menu bar and type and file to identify the file menu, and then press the enter key. So that's how it moves on. So tap or click in the menu strip object to select it, scroll in the properties window to the name property, and then change the name to whatever the name you want. In this case we have used a menu file, but you don't have to use exactly the same thing. Now in order to add a menu item to the file menu, you need to tap or click the type here box below the file menu name. Then you type as usual and clear, the ampersand sign, clear, and then press enter. So, and also you can do the same thing for the close window, close menu. So it will look like this. If you look at the screenshot, these are the two screenshots, and you can see it like these are the menu clear. This is the name of the menu, and you can see the UI, the user interface part of that. Now the menu items needs to be associated with certain event handlers, otherwise what is the use, right? So what you should do, you should go to the design view and double click on the exit menu item, and then you put simply close procedure call to close the window and terminate the application. So it is as simple as this one. So if you go here, let's say we have exit, so double click it and we can put a close parenthesis. This we can call this procedure, and that will basically terminate the window. So you can insert the standard items for a menu. I would like you to read the book. Visual Basic contains an action tag that allows you to create a full standard menu bar commonly provided in Windows programs like the files, edit, all those functions. Now, action tags provide a way for you to specify a set of actions called smart actions for an object that you design a form. So basically, uh, we did not do it in our application, but it is worth knowing it, and you can basically go there, uh, open a go to your device, and you can open a uh, Visual Studio project and practice this standard smart actions. Practice these smart actions. So, these are the standard action file menus. These are the whenever you have a file, you have this type of menus, and the Visual Studio gives you ability to create these menus using some action, using some action smart actions. The action tag. Now, we have to use the input box function as well. The input box function displays a dialog box that consists of a message asking for input, an input area, a title, and an OK button and a cancel button. We have learned it before. We are repeating it here. When the user enters the text and taps or clicks the OK button, the input function returns this text as a string. If the user taps or clicks the cancel button, the function returns null string. So, this is the usage that we are going to use. So basically, this is not exactly what we are using, but it is an example. So you have an input box, it will write, please enter your age, and its name is driver's license agency. So you can see there are two boxes, like two options, OK and cancel, and you can of course enter your age here. So weight loss app also uses a similar kind of structure where we have the different messaging. So to give you a quick example, let me run the same application that we are going to demo during the lab lecture. So let me open up. So here, this is the fitness challenge application, and you can see clearly that you can. So as we mentioned, we can use the input box as follows. So you do it, this is the input box. So the title is weight loss, and this is the question is enter the weight loss for team member number one. It will move on with the iterative loop. So we are not talking about this one yet. We'll discuss in detail about it in the lab, but I just gave you a quick demo for that. Make sense? So then, this is more information about it, and then you could create the input box application. This is the code snippet, line number 20 below. So we also use the similar type of code in the, as you will see probably in the lab section. Now you can display the data. Like you can have the properties. You can drag the list box object from toolbox to where you want to place it. So that's what we did, and on that route actually you can change the name of the procedure, and also the instance name of the instance of the procedure, and also that's it. You can use several other things as well. Now here, so what is going on here, you display the data using the list box object. So here you can see the numbers right under the list box: 5.4, 28.1. These are all the weight loss, and there are 3 digits and decimal points. So there are altogether 8 numbers, and the numbers are added. Like this is the list box name, and then you have an items procedure, and then you keep adding those procedure. Each item is one of the items is a record, like 5.4 28.1, 3.4, 1.9 in the picture. These are the items. Okay. So now you could, as a part of your clear button, you could clear this list item box as well, list box as well. So in that case, you call items.clear that procedure. So basically, you add, keep on adding those like list box items during the design. So assume that list stores list box object already has been placed and named on the Windows form object. Now you can tap or click the ellipsis button on the right column of the items property, tap and click the string collection editor window, type the following items like, I mean, it's a different example, but you can build your application based on these examples. So here this is the outcome, like this is the list box and you can add multiple things to it, right? So use the selected item property, you could do that. I mean, you can always first list box item, you can do the selected item, and that way your backend will know exactly what you have selected. Now you can add a background image property of the form object. So basically this is your form object, right? I mean, let me show you. And this is the form. In the background of it is an image. So that's what we are talking about. This is the background image property, and you can use the background image layout property to stretch the picture across the form. So we also added the background image here, and then you can use accumulators, counters, and compound operators, a variable that contains an accumulated value. Like the total of all weight loss values is called an accumulator. So it keeps on being accumulated throughout the iteration process. So it starts with 1, let us say, or starts with even 0. The weight loss is 0 before the iteration takes place, and the end of each iteration, it keeps on adding the weight loss for different individuals. So that way it accumulates the weight loss for 8 individuals, and as a final as the final number result, you will see the total of all weight loss values. Then also we have a variable that always is incremented with a constant value called a counter. So this is a counter. How many how many weights are added there? How many weight loss values are added there? In our case, the maximum is 8, but it does not mean that we will have 8. It may be less than that, not more than, of course, but it will be less than that. It can be less than that. So the typical code snippet is shown in the picture below. Line number 26 shows the accumulator, and line number 27 is the counter. So this actually gives you some examples with different operators like single operators and compound operators. Take a look at it, and let's you can do some practices as well. Now with all those operators, it looks like this. I mean, this code snippet, you can see a message box where you can see the final result. I mean, everything is there. There are of course multiple ways to produce the final results. Let's focus on the like oh, we have a label on the application. We will be publishing our final results on that label itself. Anyways, so how do you use the loops to perform repetitive tasks? So in the fitness challenge application, the user enters weight loss values in an input box for up to 8 team members. The repetitive process of entering 8 weight loss values can be coded within a loop to simplify the task with fewer lines of code. Each repetition of the loop is called an iteration. So you can see here a repetition of the process. You can use a for next loop. See here, For the syntax is for and then the next loop. Like for, you can have the control variable, whatever it is, beginning numerical value to ending numerical value. So let's say we have control variable x, and then we can say x equals 1 comma 1 to 10, and then you have the body of the loop, whatever you are going to do for the loop, and then you put the next. So that's an example. You can write 4 times the body of loop, this value, this string. The same string is written 4 times here. Now you could include a step value in a for next. A step value is a value in for a form for. So basically, let's say we are calculating 1 to 99 in steps of 2, right? So 1, then 3, then 5, then 7, then 9, then 11, then 13, and so on. So that is called in step of 2. In that case, you have to do for whatever the identifier name equals 1 to 99. That's the example, step 2. Then line number 50 is the statement that you wish to do in your for statement. So again, I mean, you could do it negative way as well. The negative value, positive values, you can do the both. You can do a fractional. I mean, this for loop does not need to be on integers. It can be on the integers or decimal, whatever you want. Now you can put an expression as well, mathematical expressions in the for loop as well. No limitation of for loop in that. You can use the IntelliSense to enter the for next loop code, of course, right? So in the code window, you have to type dim int Alaska population. I mean, that's an example, and then press enter key, then type dim int year as integer, and that way you can use the IntelliSense. So once you use this, you can see, I mean, your list box can have this type of structure. In our case, it's little different, but here in this structure. So you can handle the user input in the in a for to next loop as well. I mean, that's how we are starting. So user enters the beginning, minimum, and the ending range of values, and then clicks the calculate values button to view the squares of the number in the range in this case. So that's basically running a loop, and you are doing some calculation within each iteration. So you can, there is another example. So you can do the items add. I mean, that way you can do as well. So repeat a process using a do loop. In a do loop, the body of the loop is executed while or until a condition is true or false. The do while loop executes as long as the condition is true. The will do while loop executes until the condition remains true. A top controlled loop is tested before the loop is entered. So it's a preconditioned loop kind of. So body related to the condition, the body of the loop, that is the statement um, within the loop, may not execute. The bottom control loop tests the condition of the bottom of the loop, so body executes at least one. So we have two types of loops, top controlled and bottom controlled. So top control loop example is do while condition, and then you do the loop. Sometimes you have to make sure that your loop does not go to an infinite process. Like if you put a while condition that is never satisfied, then it will run forever. So you should restrict using, you should be careful using the when you use the while condition. So you could do like you can enter the do loop using the IntelliSense as well. I mean, like you can put whatever IntelliSense tells you. So then the bottom control loop works in the same way as the top control loop. The body of the loop is executed before the condition is checked for the first time, so guaranteeing that at least one iteration of a loop will be completed. Okay, so bottom control loop example is something like this. I mean, this one, you can see the code line number 22. It declares the int score as integer equals 0. Then line number 23 is the start of the do loop. Then line number 24 is the statement that we execute as a part of the do loop, the body of the do loop. Then 25 is the end of loop while the score int score value remains less than 5. So that's the entire bottom control do while loop. So you can do the do until loop as well. You know, the top control do until loop. A do until loop can be both top controlled and bottom controlled. That's the great thing about do until loop. So basically you can do it in this way. I mean, like, suppose you declare several variables and then you do until the DEC amount is less than 20.25, then you do int quarters plus equals 1, and then it goes on, you know. And then, I mean, it's a parking calculator application. So let's say each like until, I mean, this one is the amount is less, you put, let's say, $1, then it is becoming less every hour. So this is the way you can implement that type of form that will basically drive the parking meter. So you can do the bottom control loop as well. I mean, at the bottom you can put another criteria to control the loop. So do loops often are written to end when the user enters a certain value or performs a certain action such as tapping, clicking, cancel button in the input box. And what is an infinite loop? This is very important. Infinite loop is a loop that never ends. You should not code anything related to the infinite loop. This is dangerous because you won't, I mean, it will run forever. So the end users won't get their results. So prime the loop. What is prime the loop? It is starting a loop with a preset value in the variable tested in the condition called priming the loop. So an example is shown below. Now you can do the data validation. So this is kind of the weight loss application that we coded. So you can see we are running line number 36, a do until loop, and the condition is number of entries is if until the number of entries is more than the maximum number of entries, in our case that is 8, or the weight loss, you just cancel the weight loss, I mean the weight loss button. Okay, so then you start with a criteria if it is numeric or not. If it is not numeric, it will immediately throw some error, the non-numeric error here, and then it goes through the criteria that weight loss is greater than 0. Then you do certain things, keep on adding it to the accumulator and increase the counter. So DEC total weight loss is the accumulator in our case, and int number of entries is the counter. So if it does not, if we accidentally pass any negative number, then we put like a message, I mean string negative number, negative error message. Or if you put some non-numeric character including null, you will end up getting the error, non-numeric error. Okay, finally you do the calculations. You like you open up the user input and let the user say about the weight loss. I mean, user will iteratively enter the weight loss into the application, and then that way it will be accumulated and calculate the total total weight loss and subsequently the averages. So you could sometimes need to you sometimes need to create a nested loop, that is a for loop inside a for loop. Just remember, we had the nested logical statement, if block, and if statement inside if statement. Similarly, you can have for loop inside a for loop. So you can see the code below. So line number 8 starts a for loop, line number 9 starts another for loop. Both should run. I mean, like, inner for loop will do the calculation, then the outer for loop will complete it, and then it will go on that way. So you can do the nested loop. I mean, you can do that. Basically, this is an example of creating the nested loop. So for a do loop criteria, you need to select the best loop for your application. So you can use a do loop if the number of repetition is unknown. So in our case, it is not applicable. If a loop condition must be tested before the body of the loop is executed, use a top control do while or do until loop. That's what we are doing. Now, use the keyword while if you want to continue execution of the loop while the condition is true. Now, you can use a data tip with the breakpoints. Resolving the defects in the code is called debugging. A good way to collect information is to pause the execution of the code where a possible error could happen. Now, the breakpoints are stop points placed in the code. I mean, I should say temporary stop points to tell the Visual Studio debugger where and when to pause the execution of the application. While in break mode, you can examine the values in all variables that are within the scope of execution through the use of data tips. So there are more information on the data tips in the book. I recommend you to go through the book. So next part is the publishing an application with click one deployment. So after the application is completely debugged, you are done with the application, the coding is done. Then you have to deploy the project, means you place an executable version of the program on your hard disk, on a web server or on a network server. When programming with Visual Basic, you can create a deployed program by using click once deployment. The deployed version of the program you create can be installed and executed on any computer that has the .NET framework installed. So with the application open, basically you click the this is the click once deployment. You click the build on the menu bar. Let me show you quickly. So here, this is the application, is open. Go to the build and you can see here an option like publish whatever your application, right? So next step, you do change the default location from publish slash to a file location, real file location. To publish to a USB drive, type a drive letter, tap or click the next button. If necessary, tap or click from a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. If necessary, tap under the next button. You need to click the application will not check for updates option button as well. So pretty much it is like this. Let me show you. Let's delete this one, and then if we go there in the Visual Studio application, in the Visual Studio, go to build, and then you can choose like publish this application. So you start with that this thing, and then you go next, and then you do CD-ROM or DVD-ROM file. You go to next. The application will not check for updates. Go to next, and that's it. You can finish it. That way it is getting published. And you see here below there is a green logo. That means the publishing process is going on. So this is the publishing directory. So if you double click on setup, for example, so you will find that the application is extracted and installed. It's running itself. So you can do the tap or click the finish button, and then these are the steps that we have done for the fitness application. So finally you can publish. You can install it after publishing, and this is the program design for this application. Going on. So basically we understood to design and write the code to implement the for loops, iterative loops, and to create the menus, list box, and an input box. So that's all for this week. Just go through the lecture, go through the slides, go through the book, and do the lab. Go through the lab and do the lab, and then let us discuss if you have any question. Okay, so send me a message or create an office hour, whatever way you want. We can do take this to another level of further discussion. So that's all from now today. We will talk to you. I will talk to you soon. Okay, thank you.